Part 23. Rebirth of a Farming Wife. Author, TNNI. Chapter 221. This, at most 40%. This is because Dr. Lin is confident in his medical skills and is willing to try his best. That is why Dr. Su Wenyu and Lin would say this. If it were other doctors in Xinyi County, they would probably be sure at most 20 to 30%. When Su Henji heard this result, it was actually expected, and he still didn't want to believe it, but it was useless to escape from the facts. What if it's Mr. Bao? What's the percentage? Su Henji asked again. Although this question was a bit cruel, the three men of the Su family actually meant this. First, they must make sure that the adults are fine. As for the children, if it is really not possible, it can only be said that this child's fate is too shallow, and there will always be others in the future. If I just protect you, I'm 70% sure, but it's just 2 lives. If you give up easily, let alone other people, even the young lady may not be able to accept this reality. Dr. Lin actually does not agree with giving up the child. Doctors have a parental heart. Every life is precious to him. Although Su Wenyu felt a little confused, she was not completely unconscious. She heard these words. With her parents' and brother's love for her, she would rather not have a child than put her in danger, but she was looking forward to the child. The long-lasting baby is willing to pay for it even with her life. Not to mention the 40% chance now, she will insist on giving birth to the child even if there is a glimmer of hope. Brother, I want to protect the child. Please help me protect the child. If something happens to the child, I will not live alone. Su Wenyu looked at Su Henji pleadingly, and did not hesitate to threaten Su Henji with her own life. This method is too extreme, isn't it? She was afraid that her eldest brother would really give up the opportunity to save the child and save her. I heard Dr. Lin say that he was 40% sure that both adults and children could be saved. In fact, Su Henji was hesitant in his heart. He looked at Mr. Su Henji and both had hesitant expressions. Regarding his closest relatives, even if he was decisive, it's hard for people to make an immediate decision, so they heard Su Wenyu's words. You have to be obedient. You are like this and in such a bad state. How can you give birth to a child like this? There will be more children, but if the life is gone, there will be nothing. Su Henji's son persuaded Su Wenyu, not he decided to see if Su Wenyu had the courage and determination. If not, it would be better to abandon the child to save the adult from the beginning. The child is my life. The child is my life. Brother, I beg you. I feel much better now. I will recover soon after taking a rest and eating something. Even for the sake of the child, I will do it. I will overcome this difficulty. Su Wenyu's words were full of perseverance and courage. Su Henji had never seen his sister so determined and fearless. Her expression lit up when she said this. Only then did I realize how great a mother is. The little girl who used to act coquettishly in front of him and was afraid of being loved and would cry now actually has the courage to duel with death. Angshi could best understand her daughter's feelings at this time. She felt sad for a while, but she held Su Wenyu's hand. Okay, you, don't worry, mother will let Dr. Lin do his best to protect you and the child. As long as you hold on, it will definitely work. Since my little sister has such courage, we support your decision and work harder to give birth to 2 little nephews. Our little sister is the most powerful and blessed one and will definitely be able to get through this safely. Su Henji it also expressed the attitude of the father and son, making Su Wenyu completely relieved and ready to face the next challenge. After handing Su Wenyu to An, Mr. Su and his son discussed with Dr. Lin outside for a while. Mom, I want to eat. You ask the kitchen to prepare some food. I will have the strength to give birth to the baby only when I am full, Su Wenyu said without waiting for An's arrangement. She had had the experience of giving birth and knew everything. Understand, after all the tossing just now, I have exhausted all my strength. What is needed most at this time is to replenish strength and prepare for the next production. Angshi understood what her daughter meant. Okay, mother will send someone to prepare it for you immediately. You want to rest in peace for a while. You must be tired after working for so long. There is still a difficult battle to fight next. Everything else has to be taken care of. It's up to mother to arrange it. Suwenayu nodded. Her mother was more experienced than her. Leave it to her to arrange everything, so she could relax and rest her mind. The pain just now was nothing compared to the pain of giving birth. After Master Su and his son discussed with Dr. Lin, they sent someone to notify Han Yu. Although they were dissatisfied that Han Yu did not take good care of Suwenayu, at this time of life and death, Han Yu, a husband and father, had to be present. What's more, even if they were angry in their hearts, they knew that this incident could not be completely blamed on Han Yu. It was just to vent their anger. It was hard enough for Han Yu to be busy with things in the military camp every day, not to mention taking care of his pregnant wife at home. Sometimes it was possible that he couldn't take care of him. They heard what Nanny Chen said about the situation at that time, and when they met Yao, no one could predict such a thing as the Qin family. Even if they were replaced, they might not be able to do better. Yu has such a temper. Suwenayu has not forgotten Han Yu. At this time, what she wants most is that Han Yu is by her side. Although she blamed Han Yu for hiding everything from her before, it is not a blame, but the worry of not being able to control the situation, and the worry in her heart. There was an unreasonable irritability. How could she not understand that Han Yu was doing it for her own good, but she was too worried about her eldest brother at the time. After her previous life experience, her care for her family was beyond the understanding of ordinary people. Her worries and panic emotions were all suppressed before. Some of his secret thoughts burst out at once. Mother, send someone to inform Han Yu. I came here on my own initiative. I was too willful. You can't blame Han Yu. I wanted him to accompany me. And she understood. Don't worry, Yu, your father has sent someone to inform. Han Yu finally cleared a path and hurried to the Su family, but was stopped by Sikong Ling outside the Su family. Master Han, shall we talk? Sikong Ling slightly hooked his lips. He still looked like a noble young man in the spring breeze, but he was a little more distant and indifferent, and his tone was also a little cold. Although Han Yu had never seen Sikong Ling, he recognized Sikong Ling at first sight. As the person who secretly controlled the Sikong family, Sikong Ling was more outstanding and more cunning than he thought. He suddenly didn't look like a romantic young man at all. He became more alert in his heart, especially when Sikong Ling appeared at the door of the Su family. There were many things that made him think deeply. Young Master Sikong, nice to meet you. Han Yu remained as indifferent as ever. He did not show any different expression because of Sikong Ling. He did not hesitate to directly reveal Sikong Ling's identity. Rebirth of a Farming Wife. Author, Tianni. Chapter 222. Sikong Ling was not surprised. If Han Yu didn't even have this ability and still occupied Yueniang, he would have killed her with just a few fingers. It was still his turn, but Han Yu still didn't do well enough. Yao Qin took advantage of the loophole, but fortunately he didn't find anything wrong with Yueniang along the way. Han Yu said nothing after saying those words, but waited for Sikong Ling to see what he wanted to say. Sikong Ling was also looking at Han Yu, waiting for Han Yu to lose his composure and ask questions first. Men with different backgrounds but equally outstanding faces met and faced each other, refusing to give in to each other. No one wanted to fall behind. Han Yu didn't show it on his face, but he was a little impatient and anxious in his heart. He didn't know how his wife's situation was now. He had no time to waste time with Sikong Ling. When he saw Sikong Ling standing there with a calm face, he was not in any hurry. It looked like she was obviously obsessed with him. Han Yu would not hand control over to others, since young Master Sikong has nothing to say, I am still in a hurry to see my wife and take my leave. Wait a minute. Sikong Ling's face darkened when he saw that Han Yu was so arrogant and didn't take him seriously and was about to leave like this, but he had to change his original strategy and open his mouth to keep people. Mr. Han has a really bad temper, but he can't calm down anymore. Since he's worried about Yu Eneang and the child, what did he do before? He actually made Yu Eneang run back to her parents' house with a big belly. Why are you worrying now? Isn't it a little late? Han Yu's face turned dark when he heard that Sikong Ling actually called his wife Yu Eneang, especially Sikong Ling's questioning tone. He didn't know from what standpoint he said such words, saying Yu Eneang, or in front of him. What do you think of him? There were also things that happened at Lingyan Temple before. Everything made Han Yu dislike Sikong Ling. Young Master Sikong, this is my family matter. Regardless of whether it is right or wrong, it is not your turn to comment, young Master Sikong. Moreover, young Master Sikong's title should also be changed. I don't know, I thought that young Master Sikong coveted the husband. Women, I'm afraid it will damage my reputation. My reputation doesn't have to worry Master Han anymore. If Master Han really can't take care of Yu Eneang, I don't mind. Uncle, it's great that you're here. I'm just going to find you. The boy was sent out by Master Su. He was about to go to Silla town when he saw Han Yu standing not far from the door. Talk to someone and run over quickly. The situation is urgent at this time, and you can't care whether you disturb him or not. Before Sikong Ling finished speaking, he was interrupted by a servant sent by the Su family. However, Han Yu's face was still dark. Although he had not finished speaking, the meaning behind it was obvious without saying it. He actually dared to covet him so blatantly. Sikong Ling really didn't take his wife seriously. This feeling of being despised was very uncomfortable, but Han Yu also understood that with the current power of the Sikong family, he had no ability to compete at this time, but this did not mean that he would succumb to Sikong Ling. Uncle, I asked my servant to come to you and ask you to come over quickly. Miss had a stomachache not long ago. She asked Dr. Lin to take a look. The condition is not very good and she will give birth early. The young man completely ignored Sikong Ling at this time and just followed Han Yu said what the master told him. What? Yu Eneang is going to give birth prematurely? Han Yu was shocked. He was afraid that something like this would happen, so he kept his uncle's matter a secret. Unexpectedly, he failed to prevent Yao Qin from taking all precautions. If I had known earlier, I would have told my wife the matter slowly, and things like today would not have happened. It was too late to regret at this time. Sikong Ling was also shocked when he heard the news of Su Wenyu's premature birth. He wanted to ask something but had no identity or position, so he waited for Han Yu to ask. Unexpectedly, Han Yu went directly to Su's house without asking anything. He was also following Han Yu. Even though he was worried, he had no choice but to send people to inquire about the situation. However, the Su family was not as good as the Han family. The information was not so easy to find out. Mr. Su and his son did not expect that Han Yu would arrive so soon. Their expressions softened a little. They knew what happened. The fact that their son-in-law rushed over so quickly showed that they did not waste even a moment and told Han Yu about Su Wenyu's situation. Looking at Han Yu's reaction. After all, Han Yu was different from them. They cared more about Yu Eneang, but the child in her belly was Han Yu's biological son. Who didn't pay attention to the inheritance of incense. If Han Yu cared more about his children, they would understand, but they would not compromise. No matter what, the safety of Yu Eneang must be preserved first. Unexpectedly, Han Yu agreed to their idea without thinking. According to what my father-in-law and uncle said, this is also my idea. I will try my best to save Yu Eneang and the child. If it doesn't work, I will have to save Yu Eneang. Han Yu was not without pain and contradictions. After all, it was his child. He would touch his wife's belly every day and listen to the child's movements. But at such a critical moment, he already had a choice in his mind. If he lost it, the child may live in pain and sorrow. If Yuenyang is lost, Han Yu will feel empty in his heart and unable to control himself whenever he thinks about it. Hearing Han Yu's answer, the Su family and his son were both satisfied. At this time, An's family also heard the noise inside and came out. She was happy when she saw Han Yu coming over. Her daughter was waiting inside. "My son-in-law is here, go in quickly, Yuenyang is waiting for you inside." Han Yu didn't hesitate when he heard about it. He said hello to his father-in-law and uncle and went in, his steps a little heavy. Seeing Su Wenyu with a face as pale as paper, Han Yu felt a twinge in his heart. He was a little angry that she didn't know the importance of it and put himself in danger, but more worried and distressed. He walked over and gently caressed Su Wenyu's face. Su Wenyu was sleeping in a daze at this time. She felt someone coming in. She opened her eyes and saw that it was Han Yu. There was an excited look on her face and she blinked. Daughter-in-law, Han Yu murmured softly. "Ms. Sir, I'm sorry. I didn't mean it. I just thought about what happened in my previous life and was too worried about my elder brother. I was a little confused. I originally thought that nothing would happen if I was careful." Su Wenyu was very strong to her family just now and did not reveal anything. "I couldn't help feeling weak when I saw Han Yu." Han Yu touched Su Wenyu's head and wiped Su Wenyu's tears. His eyes were full of love and affection. As for the words he heard about the previous life, he automatically passed them by. This was not the time to care about this. The past is over. Brother and you have a good relationship. It's only natural for you to worry. It will be fine. Both you and the child will be fine. Han Yu comforted her warmly. I will give birth to the child well, even if I risk my life, even if something happens to me, I will not let anything happen to the child," Su Wenyu said seriously, like a promise to Han Yu, like an oath, but also to Han Yu's own encouragement. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Rebirth of a Farming Wife. Author, TNNI. Chapter 223. Han Yu felt a pang in his heart when he heard Su Wenyu say this, and he held Su Wenyu's hand. "The child must be well, and you must be well too." At this time, the servant brought in the oxytocin, and Han Yu took it and fed it to Su Wenyu. After a while, there was a reaction, and Su Wenyu's stomach began to twitch and hurt, and Han Yu called Dr. Lin in. Dr. Lin felt Su Wenyu's pulse. The oxytocin is taking effect, and the birth is not so fast. Take advantage of this time to eat more, rest as much as possible, accumulate physical strength, and prepare for the birth. Su Wenyu nodded, and she was not squeamish at the critical moment. She ate a large bowl of brown sugar eggs, which she hated the most, and also ate a few good things that Dr. Lin ordered the kitchen to eat. After resting for a while, she started to have an attack again. The midwife had already come over and asked Han Yu to wait outside. Han Yu looked at Su Wenyu worriedly, and didn't want to go out. When his wife was in danger, he couldn't rest assured if he didn't watch him for a moment. And had just come in with the midwife. Seeing her son-in-law like this, she cared about her daughter and felt comforted. However, she couldn't just watch and let her son-in-law stay here. Women have a lot of blood and qi during childbirth, which is easy to be contaminated with bad luck. If people knew about it, they would only say that the Su family was ignorant. "Son-in-law, don't worry, I'm here. You go wait outside. It's impossible for a man to stay in the room when a woman gives birth. Go out quickly. Mother-in-law, I'm worried about Yuenyang, so let me stay here with her." Seeing Su Wenyu's pale face and cold sweat, lying on the bed and groaning, Hanyu didn't listen to An's words as usual this time, and insisted on staying. Son-in-law, there is a lot of blood and qi in the delivery room, which is easy to be contaminated with bad luck. Hanyu didn't believe this. The men in their military camp had no idea how many lives they had stained, and they were afraid of this. Mother-in-law, I don't believe this. I'll stay here with you, Niang. And couldn't do anything about Hanyu seeing him like this. She couldn't let anyone come in and drag her son-in-law out. Su Wenyu knew what An was thinking. Although she also wanted Hanyu to accompany her, it was not good to do so. She barely endured the pain and looked at Hanyu. Husband, please go out first. You are too restrained here as a midwife. Su Wenyu stretched out a hand and pushed Hanyu. Hanyu looked at the midwife coldly after hearing what Su Wenyu said. The midwife trembled in her heart and lowered her head quickly, thinking that the look of this adult was really scary. Su Wenyu saw Hanyu like this. If it wasn't for the pain in her body, she would have wanted to laugh. Husband, don't scare me. I know you're worried about me. I'm fine. Please go out. I look so ugly. I don't want you to see me in such a mess. I've seen everything you look like. Are you afraid that I'll see you? You can feel more at ease if I accompany you. No, if you look at me, I'm too embarrassed to shout out my stomachache. It will only hinder me from having a baby. Don't worry, I'll be fine. Please go out. I really can't bear it anymore. Hanyu had no choice but to go out after hearing Su Wenyu's words. He heard Su Wenyu's screams as soon as he walked to the door. His feet softened. He managed to keep himself from losing his composure, but his face became even colder, and his eyes were fixed on the door. When the father and son of the Su family saw Hanyu like this, if the people inside were not close relatives, they would have said that Hanyu was useless. Seeing that Han cared so much about Su Wenyu, some of them comforted and reassured him. The three worried father and son comforted Hanyu instead. Son-in-law, don't worry. Yu Niang has been blessed since she was a child. Together, we will give birth to the baby. Yes, brother-in-law, you don't have to worry too much. You came here in such a hurry. You haven't eaten lunch yet. I'll ask the servants to prepare some food. Eat first and then come over. Su Henji patted Hanyu's shoulder. Hanyu pulled the corners of his mouth, but still couldn't smile. Although he didn't want to talk at this time, he couldn't ignore his father-in-law and brother-in-law. Thank you, father-in-law and brother, for your concern. I'm not hungry now, and I can't eat. Let's wait until Yu Niang gives birth to the baby. After Hanyu said this, he focused his eyes on the door again and stood there silently. After a while, he saw the midwife coming out and hurried over. How is Yu Niang? Is she about to give birth? My lord, my wife is only 2 fingers dilated, it's not that fast. The labor pains have passed now. I'll take this opportunity to check if the necessary things are ready. Women give birth in 1 or 2 days. Please be patient. The midwife was still a little scared when facing Hanyu. After she finished speaking, she went to the kitchen to take a look. Although Madame Su had prepared everything, she still had to go and see if there were any omissions, especially this time it was twins, so more things needed to be prepared. At this time, another midwife in the city also arrived. She was also the most famous and experienced midwife in Xinyi County. Su Wenyu gave birth for the first time, and she was pregnant with twins. One midwife was not enough. Madame Su was worried and invited several midwives. Because Su Wenyu was born prematurely, only these 2 could come at this time. Su Wenyu's situation was special, and it was not easy for Dr. Lin to go in to deliver the baby. He had to tell the 2 midwives some things. The 2 midwives also discussed it and each of them had a plan in mind. Then they heard Su Wenyu crying in pain again, and hurried in. Half an hour passed, and Hanyu was still standing there motionless. Master Su asked someone to bring a stool, and Hanyu was still standing there, and he heard the screams inside becoming more and more tragic. Han Yu's heart trembled when he heard this. My daughter-in-law is most afraid of pain. Even Dunlun was very delicate and petty when she was young. She always cried out in pain. How painful it must be to scream like this. He looked at the basins of when the blood and water were brought out. Han Yu's face became colder and colder, and there was an icy air all over his body. Su Wenyu had experienced the pain of childbirth before, and she was prepared in her heart. Even so, the pain was still a bit unbearable. It was probably because of the induction of labor. It was several times more painful than normal childbirth. If she hadn't strengthened her confidence, she would definitely give birth. After the baby was born, Su Wenyu felt that she would not be able to support it. At this time, she could only grit her teeth. 4 fingers had already been opened, and it was almost time to give birth. The people inside were suffering, and the people outside were also suffering. As time went on, the Su family and his son became more and more worried, and Han Yu became even more anxious. The screams inside continued without interruption, but at this time, it became quiet and seemed a little unusual. What's going on inside? Send someone in to take a look. Why is there no sound? Mr. Su said a little irritably. It was difficult for them to get in, so he sent a maid in. The maid hadn't reached the door yet, but there was something inside. People came out in a hurry, with anxious and panicked expressions on their faces, shouting to find Dr. Lin. Dr. Lin, please go in and see Madam. Madam has fainted. We need to find a way to wake her up quickly. Otherwise, we might suffocate the child in her belly and Madam will be in danger. Rebirth of a Farming Wife. Author, Tianni. Chapter 224. Dr. Lin did not go in immediately, but looked at Han Yu. Although Dr. Lin was old, he still had to be careful about the difference between men and women. It would be bad if Han Yu had a grudge because of this. Han Yu saw that Dr. Lin had not gone in yet, but looked at him anxiously. Dr. Lin, hurry up, my wife is still waiting for you to save her life, why are you still dawdling? Previously, he was blasted out by several women. At this time, Su Wenyu was in danger. Han Yu did not care so much and followed Dr. Lin in. Seeing his wife lying on the bed with a pale face and a weak breath, he was heartbroken, but he could only endure it. Dr. Lin pierced Su Wenyu with a silver needle, and Su Wenyu finally woke up slowly. Dr. Lin had expected Su Wenyu's situation. Madam has consumed too much energy, so she fainted. Go get the ginseng soup for her to drink. Su Wenyu had exhausted her energy before, and she felt more energetic after drinking the ginseng soup. The pain in her body continued, and she didn't know when it would stop. The midwife's voice came to her ears, Madam, push hard, the baby is about to come out, if you hold it in, it will be bad. Yu Niang, be strong, didn't you say you must give birth to the baby well? Listen to the midwife. Han Yu held Su Wenyu's hand. Although he felt distressed, it was not the time to indulge Su Wenyu's weakness, so he encouraged her from the side. Su Wenyu nodded reluctantly and did what the midwife said. After a while, she finally heard the midwife say, the baby's head can be seen, and it is still stuck inside. Madam, try harder, otherwise the baby will be suffocated. Su Wenyu didn't have much strength to begin with. When she heard the midwife's words, she used all her strength downwards and felt something sliding out from below. Congratulations, madam, it's a little boy. The midwife took the child out, but the other midwife didn't dare to relax, because there was another baby in her belly. She continued to let Su Wenyu push hard. Soon, she heard another loud cry. The midwife finally breathed a sigh of relief. It was finally born. It's another little boy, he looks pretty and neat. Congratulations, madam, it's a great blessing. The midwife smiled and announced the good news to Han Yu and Su Wenyu. Han Yu accompanied Su Wenyu from beginning to end. He didn't have the heart to see the child. He only paid attention to Su Wenayu's condition. Seeing that Su Wenayu seemed to have no strength left after giving birth, he wiped the sweat off her head with heartache, but he was still relieved. Fortunately, everything went well and the child was finally born. Even if it was a pain, it was safe and sound, and the difficulties were overcome. Su Wenayu didn't laugh, but she felt like there was something in her belly. She said what she thought, and the midwife's face changed immediately after checking. "Quick, there's another one in the madam's belly." "There's another one." Another midwife was a little dumbfounded, and immediately put the child in place and came to help. Su Wenayu's stomach hurt again at this time, but the third one was not so easy to give birth to, and she didn't give birth for more than half an hour. The madam's fetus is in an abnormal position, and the child in her belly is facing down. When the midwife said this, the faces of the people present changed, knowing what it meant. At this time, only Hanyu was in charge. My lord's condition is really not good. The child's feet are facing down, which means it's a difficult birth. Do you want to save me or the child?" The midwife asked Hanyu for his opinion, and she felt cold all over after she finished speaking. Facing Hanyu's cold eyes, the midwife had no choice even if she was scared. "Sir, the situation of Madam cannot be delayed any longer. We must make a decision quickly, otherwise both Madam and the child will be in danger." "Save Madam," Hanyu said without any hesitation. He had thought about it a long time ago. Not to mention that 2 children have been born now, even if there are none, he will save Madam first. The midwife got Hanyu's order and made up her mind. Su Wenayu had no strength at all. When she heard Hanyu say that he wanted to save Madam, she immediately panicked. Although she already had 2 children, she was not ready to give up any of them. Maybe this was the child she didn't give birth to in her previous life. This time, she had to save it. "No, I want to save the child, I have to save the child." After Su Wenayu said this, the midwife looked at Hanyu with some embarrassment, not knowing who to listen to. Seeing the midwife like this, Su Wenayu didn't know where she got the strength to grab Hanyu's hand. "Husband, that's our child. I carried her in my belly for 8 months and watched her grow up little by little. I can't just give up on her. I must keep this child." Su Wenayu's voice was full of pleading, but Hanyu did not waver. He was very determined and only asked the midwife to keep Su Wenayu safe. As for the child, if she couldn't, she would have to give it up. If it was something else, Su Wenayu would have given up if Hanyu was so determined, but this was her own child. Su Wenayu thought of the method she had heard before, saying that experienced nannies would know a massage method that could correct the position of the fetus. Su Wenayu hurriedly told her the method. Her mother found experienced midwives for her, who should have this skill. Indeed, Su Wenayu guessed correctly, both midwives knew how to do it, but this method was still dangerous, and the pregnant woman would also suffer great pain. They did not think that the pampered eldest daughter of the Su family would be able to endure this hardship. By then, not only would the child be gone, but the adult would also be in danger, so they did not suggest this method. After hearing Su Wenayu say this method, Po Wen was a little surprised. She didn't expect that Su Wenayu would know this. In fact, Dr. Lin also knew this method, but he had the same view as Po Wen, and he didn't think Su Wenayu could endure such great pain. Dr. Lin is no better than the 2 stable women. It can be said that he is very familiar with Su Wenayu, and he feels that this method is impossible. "Dr. Lin, is this method feasible?" Hanyu was relieved after hearing Su Wenayu say that there was a way. After all, it was his own child. If there was a way to save the adults, he would of course be willing, but he couldn't just say this. From what Su Wenayu said, the doctor and Po Wen would have to talk about it. There is such a way, but it will require tremendous pain. I'm afraid Madam may not be able to bear it, but it will make the situation worse, Dr. Lin said thoughtfully, and the two stable women also nodded. Su Wenyu saw that Han Yu's expression changed after hearing what the doctor said, and she became a little anxious, fearing that Han Yu would still insist on not agreeing. I can hold on, otherwise I wouldn't have proposed this method. You have to believe me. Since there is a way to save our child, I have to try it no matter what, otherwise I will never feel at ease in my life. Han Yu was indeed hesitant. He was afraid that his daughter-in-law would be in danger, but her daughter-in-law was obviously very determined. If she didn't agree, she would not be able to overcome this hurdle. Moreover, what she was giving up was not an item, but a child. Rebirth of a Farming Wife. Author, TNNI. Chapter 225. Sir, do you want me to feel guilty and have no peace of mind for the rest of my life? Let's save this child together, okay? Su Wenyu didn't know where she got the strength to hold Han Yu's hand back. Her eyes were firmer than ever before, making everyone present people once again lamented the greatness of motherhood. Before, who would have thought that the delicate girl could do this, and she was as determined as Su Wenyu to save this child. No matter how worried Han Yu was, he had to say that he was moved by Su Wenyu. Especially Su Wenyu's words, "Guilty will never let you rest in peace," which shocked Han Yu. Han Yu was so attentive. Although his wife seemed heartless, he could always feel that her daughter-in-law had something on her mind, but she would not reveal it normally. If she really gave up the child this time, not only would her wife feel guilty, but she would also feel guilty. So does he. Okay, let's save the child together, but you must promise me that it's okay. Han Yu touched Su Wenyu's somewhat wet cheek and said. Seeing that Han Yu finally agreed, Su Wenyu showed a surprised smile and nodded, I will definitely try my best. It's not that I try my best, but I must, otherwise if something happens to you, I won't keep guarding the children, and I will marry a woman who is more beautiful and nicer than you. If you have the heart to let the children be abused by the stepmother, you can leave it alone, or you can treat me well. Han Yu's words were threats both inside and outside. Su Wenyu knew that Han Yu's temper was always consistent. At this time, she was a little unsure whether what Han Yu said was true or false. She was a little angry and a little sad. She knew that Han Yu's purpose was just to want her. Hold on and don't give up, your nose is a little sore. Don't even think about it. Our family has finally begun to live a good life. I will not let other women occupy the magpie's nest and occupy my position. I will wait for you to get promoted and make a fortune, and please give me a royal title. Be a majestic official wife. If you dare to get involved with another woman, see if I can spare you, Su Wenyu said and tried to pull Han Yu's ears, but it was a pity that she couldn't do it, and her hand became weak halfway. It hung down and was held by Han Yu. As long as you are good, I won't get involved with other women. Otherwise, I won't be able to care about you even if you do. When the time comes, your son is bullied by the stepmother and kicked out to become a beggar on the street. I won't care about it either. Still feeling that stimulating Su Wenyu was not enough, Han Yu said again. Su Wenyu knew clearly that Han Yu did it on purpose, but she still glared angrily, just wait, don't even think about it. It was also magical. Such a fuss not only did not consume physical strength, but also made her more energetic and full of motivation. People are such magical animals, and they always seem to have unlimited potential. It was obvious that she had used up all her strength before. Okay, I'll wait. If you can persist, I will allow you to dominate the house. Han Yu finally had a smile on his face. He was happy to see Su Wenyu in such a state. In this way, it should be safe. She gave birth to the child. Time was urgent, and the longer the child was in the belly, the more dangerous it was. Po Wen was already ready, and Lin was also cooperating. Han Yu had to step aside and watch, and saw Po Wen's hand on his wife's belly. The daughter-in-law's expression suddenly turned into pain, but she gritted her teeth and endured it. Po Wen was afraid that Su Wenyu would bite her tongue, so she stuffed a towel and put it in Su Wenyu's mouth. Su Wenyu cooperated, and no screams came out, but the beads of sweat as big as beans on her forehead rolled down like beads, and she tightened her hands. She clutched the sheets tightly, as if this could relieve some of the pain. If it weren't for the child in her belly, she would have wanted to die. Such boundless pain seemed to have no end in sight, and she didn't know when it would stop. Su Wenyu kept persisting. She had never been so determined and desperate in her previous life or in this life, but her eyes were getting dark. Even if she tried hard, she could not stop. Still unable to resist the waves of sleepiness in her body, she unconsciously wanted to close her eyes, as if she had forgotten what she was doing, and even the pain in her body. It hurt so much that she was already in pain. Numb. Han Yu also noticed that Su Wenyu's condition was not good, and his heart tightened. "Yu Niang, hold on, you forgot what you said. If you fall asleep, you and the child in your belly will be in danger. Are you not trying your best? Do you want to keep the child in your belly? How can you just give up? And the two children who just spoke out, don't you want them either? Child, we have to keep the baby." Su Wenyu woke up a little after being yelled at by Han Yu. Yes, she had to keep the baby. She had to hold on and not fall asleep. Han Yu was still worried when he saw Su Wenyu like this. If this continues, he doesn't know how long Su Wenyu can hold on. He has never regretted the things he has done. However, Han Yu now has some regrets. He should not have been soft-hearted if he had known better. The guilt you feel will eventually fade away as time goes by. If the person is gone, then there will be nothing. Su Wenyu could not hold on for more than half a quarter of an hour. She was a little confused after deep thought. Even Han Yu's encouragement could not do much. The body's endurance had reached its limit. Upon seeing this, Dr. Lin took a silver needle and stabbed Su Wenyu's face. Only by pricking several acupuncture points on the door could Su Wenyu stay awake. It's right, the fetal position is right. I don't know how long it took, but I almost couldn't hold on anymore. Suddenly when Po said happily, her face was also covered with sweat, but there was joy on her face. They couldn't hold on like this. There is number 100% certainty, so we can only try our best. If the fetal position is correct, the chance of the child being born is half as good. Hearing the midwife's words, everyone in the room was somewhat happy, but now was not the time to relax. The child had been in the belly for too long, and the amniotic fluid had all drained out. If it didn't come out, it would be dangerous. Su Wenyu had an attack in the afternoon, and nearly 5 hours had passed. Mr. Su and his sons were also very anxious outside. They didn't even have the joy they had when they first saw the two grandchildren and nephews. They just hoped that Su Wenyu could be safe. It didn't matter if the child behind couldn't be saved. Anyway, 2 children had been born, and they were both boys. The Han family had already had a child to carry on the family line. I don't know what Han Yu was thinking. He actually agreed to let Yu Niang do such a dangerous thing. But now there was no way out and he could only wait. "Madam, use force." "Yes, just like that, use force," the midwife instructed Su Wenyu. Su Wenyu could not care about anything now. She could only obey the voice coming from her ears and do as the midwife said, using up the little strength she had left in her body. Finally, when she had used up the last bit of strength, she felt something slipping out of her body. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Rebirth of a Farming Wife. Author, TNNI. Chapter 226. It's born. Seeing that Su Wenyu finally gave birth to the child, and was relieved and said happily. However, the midwife looked a little nervous. After waiting for a long time, they still didn't hear the baby crying. Everyone felt something was wrong. "Dr. Lin, come and see what's wrong with this child. Why is there no movement, not even a human?" asked hurriedly. "The child that her daughter gave birth to with all her might, I hope nothing goes wrong." After checking, Dr. Lin said, it was choked by amniotic fluid and held its breath. It was not the first time that the midwife encountered such a situation. As she spoke, she skillfully lifted the child upside down and patted the child's back. The baby spit out a mouthful of water from his mouth, and then cried softly like a cat. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief. It was good that he could make a sound. Even if his breath was a little weak and his body didn't look very strong, he would survive and grow up if he was carefully nurtured in the future. The midwife then announced the good news: "Congratulations, madam, on the birth of your daughter." Su Wenyu had been trying hard not to faint, just to know the condition of the child. Now, after hearing what the midwife said, she could no longer hold on and closed her eyes and fell asleep. "Dr. Lin, come and see my wife, is she okay?" Hanyu was happy to see that his daughter was also saved, and he had 3 more children with blood. Seeing that Su Wenyu had fainted, he asked Dr. Lin to check her pulse. Dr. Lin checked Su Wenyu's pulse, but he did not say that Su Wenyu was just tired and resting as he wished. His brows were furrowed more and more, and it was obvious that something was wrong. The midwife was also cleaning up Su Wenyu at this time, and suddenly her face changed drastically. "It's not good, madam has a hemorrhage." When the midwife said this, the faces of the people in the room changed. Everyone present knew what hemorrhage meant. If the bleeding could not be stopped in time, it would be a matter of life and death. How much blood a person has, Su Wenyu had lost so much blood before. Hanyu watched Dr. Lin and the midwife busy with needles and medicine with a cold face. He felt cold in his heart. He couldn't imagine a life without Su Wenyu. The child was born, but there was such a turn. Fortunately, the bleeding finally stopped, but Su Wenyu still didn't wake up. Hanyu was worried and didn't care about anything else. Su Henji had already asked for leave for Hanyu and made arrangements for the military camp, otherwise it would be another trouble. "Son-in-law, you should at least eat something and rest for a while. If you don't eat, drink, sleep or rest to watch over Yuniang, you won't be able to hold on when Yuniang wakes up." Seeing Hanyu's persuasion, and she ate some food without taste, but he refused to rest. He stayed with Su Wenyu all the time, fearing that something might happen. At this time, Su Wenyu fell into a nightmare, hazy as if she had returned to her previous life. Those people and those things made her miserable, but she couldn't help herself. Her face showed pain, and tears slid down her eyes. Hanyu found out immediately. "Yu Iniang, what's wrong with you? Wake up." Hanyu tried to pull Su Wenyu out of her dream, but he couldn't wake her up no matter how he shouted. Dr. Lin just shook his head when he saw her. After these days of recuperation, Su Wenyu's body has recovered a lot, but she just can't wake up. She seems to be immersed in her own world. Dr. Lin can't tell the reason. Maybe Yu Iniang is possessed by something, otherwise we can ask a mage to do a ritual. Seeing that her daughter didn't wake up for a long time and Dr. Lin's medical skills didn't work, and she thought of this method. Hanyu didn't believe this, but his wife was sleeping like this for no reason, which made him think more. He remembered that when he came back from Lingyan Temple, Hanyu took out a string of Buddhist beads from his arms. It was given by the old monk who was a little weird. His wife gave it to him, saying that the Buddhist beads were effective and could keep him safe, so he had to take it with him. Hanyu thought about bringing the Buddhist beads back to Su Wenyu. Strangely enough, when the Buddhist beads were in his hands, they were just like ordinary Buddhist beads, ordinary and ordinary. When Su Wenyu wore them, they seemed full of spiritual energy and radiant. Hanyu thought it must be his psychological effect. Perhaps his wife had fair skin, so she looked good in anything. What made Hanyu happy was that after the Buddhist beads were put on, his wife's face regained its calmness, and she never showed that painful look again. Hanyu felt a little mysterious, especially when his wife occasionally said something strange. It used to sound strange, but now it all appeared in his mind, as if verifying something. Suwenayu was immersed in pain and could not get rid of it. Suddenly, there were bursts of Sanskrit in her mind, and all the resentment and pain disappeared without a trace. In the end, only calmness remained. I don't know how long it took, but suddenly there was a crisp sound of wooden fish in her mind, and it was as if something exploded in her mind, and she woke up in shock. Uniang, are you awake? Suwenayu opened her eyes, her thoughts were still a little confused, and she didn't know what day it was, and she saw Hanyu's happy face. You are, Hanyu? Why are you here? Suwenayu's tone was a little strange and unbelieving. She blinked her eyes, obviously not completely out of the previous dream. Hanyu felt that Suwenayu was a little strange at the moment, but he didn't take it to heart. As long as she woke up, she was fine. He hugged her tightly in his arms. Wife, it's good that you woke up, it's good that you woke up, the children are fine too. I'll ask the nanny to bring them to you later. You will definitely be happy. When Suwenayu heard what Hanyu said, she suddenly remembered something. Some pictures and fragments appeared in her mind, but it was still a bit chaotic. After thinking for a while, she felt tired and fell asleep again. Daughter-in-law, wife-in-law, wake up, don't sleep. You've been sleeping for so long. Get up first and eat something. Didn't you say you want to take care of our child? Hanyu saw Suwenayu falling asleep again, and was afraid that Suwenayu as sleepy as before, she wanted to wake Suwenayu up. I'm so sleepy, please let me sleep for a while. Suwenayu opened her eyes hazily, muttered something and fell asleep again, with a slight dissatisfaction with being disturbed in her words. Seeing Suwenayu like this, Hanyu felt more at ease. Dr. Lin also heard the news that Suwenayu had woken up. He hurried over and took Suwenayu's pulse, and his face showed joy. Don't worry, sir. It will be fine if Madam wakes up this time. Madam is still a little tired and gets sleepy easily. She will wake up naturally as long as she gets enough sleep. The good news that Suwenayu woke up spread in the Su mansion within a few moments. After Suwenayu gave birth to 3 children, the atmosphere became truly festive. 2 dragons and 1 phoenix were born in one child, which is a big deal everywhere. This happy event is also the first time in Xinyi County. Rebirth of a Farming Wife. Author, TNNI. Chapter 227. When Suwenayu woke up, Hanyu stayed there for another day or two. After making sure that Suwenayu was really fine, he returned to the military camp. After not going there for so many days, there was a lot of backlog of things. There was also that matter that required continued preparation and planning, and Hanyu could not. If you don't devote yourself wholeheartedly to your busy work, you can only protect your wife and children if you become stronger. It was not advisable to move during the confinement period, so Suwenayu had to stay at Su's house for confinement. Because there was no milk, the 3 children were given to the nanny. Suwenayu's body was severely damaged this time, and she did not have the energy to nurse the children. Being able to have the nanny bring the children here every day, and seeing the 3 little ones sleeping soundly, Suwenayu felt that her whole heart was full. Madam, these 3 children are very obedient and neither noisy nor noisy. They seem to understand what the adults say because they know each other. It's really heartwarming, the wet nurse said with a smile. She meant to compliment Suwenayu, which was indeed the case. I feel that the child has grown a lot these days, and is no longer the red and wrinkled ugly look when he was born. Such a small child really looks different every day. Suwenayu felt happy when she heard someone praising her child. Yes, in just these few days, he has gained a lot of weight. Our Yuiniang is so lucky. She is so fragile and frail, but she is so capable of giving birth to 3 children. No one else has the ability of our Yuiniang. A cheerful voice came from outside. When the news came, Su Wenyu looked intently, but it was a beautiful woman in her 20s who helped her aunt in, followed by a little girl of 14 or 15 years old, who looked soft and frail. Su Wenyu had already heard from An about the arrival of the female family members of her eldest uncle's family, so she was not surprised. Her eldest brother's injury was caused by his eldest aunt's niece. Watching the group of people come in, she had already guessed the identity of the person coming. Eldest aunt, Hall's sister-in-law, and this is the second cousin of the eldest aunt's family. She is so beautiful, Su Wenyu said with a smile. Although she was not very happy with this cousin because her eldest brother was injured, she still had to work hard to save face. You can do it, otherwise it will be difficult for the eldest aunt. Yes, this is my niece Pei Yuhan. Her father is Pei Hai, the magistrate of Zhangzhou. The eldest aunt Pei introduced her so that they could meet each other. The day I came to see you, you were still sleeping, but now you have woken up. You look much more energetic, and the children are growing well, Ms. Pei said with a smile, looking at Su Wenyu, who was really happy. This generation of the Su family had only one daughter like this. She only had 2 sons, and she regarded Su Wenyu as her daughter. Thank you for your concern, eldest aunt. I'm much better now. It's just that my aunt is here. I can't visit her during the confinement period, so I asked her to come over. This child, our family doesn't pay attention to this. It would be best if you take good care of yourself and raise the child well. Your grandfather will come over in a few days. If he knows that you have gone through this, he will not feel sorry for you. Yes, the men in our family love you Inyang the most. Not only my grandfather, but also my husband and second brother felt distressed when they found out about it. Fortunately, Yu Inyang survived. Ms. Chu echoed her mother-in-law Pei's words, which made Pei Yuhan on the side very uncomfortable. The people in the Su family loved Su Wenyu the most, so who was she? What's more, Su Wenyu's father is just a wealthy businessman, and now he is married to a countryman. His status is not impressive and he is not worthy of being compared with her. But Pei Yuhan didn't express her thoughts when she wanted to go home. Although her father was the governor of the state, he had a stepmother. He didn't like her everywhere, and he wished he could get rid of her quickly, so she came to the Su mansion to seek refuge. Now I have to rely on my aunt to live in the Su family, and I have to be careful in everything I do and say. If I don't want to make my aunt unhappy, it would be better to live comfortably like Su Wenyu. Thinking about it makes me feel sad. Ms. Chu saw Pei Yuhan looking mournful. She didn't show it on her face, but she was very unhappy in her heart. The Su family didn't treat her badly. She was treated the same as the direct daughter of the Su family. However, this good cousin was always like this all day long. Chu Chu looked like she was being bullied pitifully, which made people feel heartbroken. This was the case with Yu Inyang now, and she was not looking for bad luck. At this time, Su Wenyu didn't quite understand this cousin's character. Seeing Ms. Chu's behavior, she just asked a few questions. What's wrong with cousin Yuhan? Why are her eyes red? But how can she not take good care of her when she lives in the Su family? If they make my cousin unhappy, just say, I will teach them a lesson. No, 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 no one is neglecting me. It's my own fault. I told you that my cousin is already married. It's not easy for me to tell my mother's family what to do. I don't want people to gossip if word spreads. Pei Yuhan felt uncomfortable after all, and there were some things he couldn't say. But that didn't stop her from roundly accusing Su Wenyu. Su Wenyu couldn't accept what Pei Yuhan said. What did it mean? It was to teach her a lesson, but what was Pei Yuhan's position? If the Su family was okay, they still stayed in the Su family. Ms. Pei was a little embarrassed to hear her niece say this. This child is really serious. How did she say it? Don't say that Yu Enyang said this for her and wanted justice for her. Instead, she said such words. Some of them are not good or bad. Yes, but this child is a bit sensitive because of her eldest brother's family, and she can't say too much to make her think too much. Mrs. Chu simply felt that Pei Yuhan's brain was broken. She looked at Pei Yuhan with speechless eyes. She really didn't know how the Pei family raised their daughter and raised such a disgusting temperament as Pei Yuhan. They didn't say anything when they were in the home mansion. This irritation has been brought outside, whose person is being thrown away. Su Wenyu wanted to say something back to Pei Yuhan, but it was too embarrassing for her eldest aunt to say so. She was so embarrassed that she didn't know what to say. She and Mrs. Chu looked at each other, feeling quite sympathetic. Seeing that Su Wenyu was silent, Pei Yuhan felt that what she said was reasonable, and it had the meaning of "I am doing it for your own good, cousin, I am doing this for your own good." As the saying goes, the water poured out by a married daughter. Now that you have, when you get married, you shouldn't worry about the Su family's affairs, otherwise even if Mr. Su and Mrs. Su dote on you, your sister-in-law will be unhappy. Miss Pei is wrong. Although Yu Enyang is married, she will always be the daughter of the Su family. Not only her father-in-law and mother-in-law love her, but also my sister-in-law. Why does Miss Pei's words sound so provoking to our sister-in-law? What do you mean by relationship? Feng Ruolin had just walked to the door when she heard someone bullying her sister-in-law. She had a bright personality and could not care about many relationships. Not to mention her father-in-law, mother-in-law, and her husband loved her sister-in-law as a treasure. She was also very fond of her sister-in-law. I like this sister-in-law, but I can't bully her sister-in-law, so I immediately said aloud. Rebirth of a Farming Wife. Author, Tian. Chapter 228. Su Wenyu's mouth curled up when she heard her sister-in-law's voice. Her sister-in-law has a cheerful personality. It's normal for her to say this. She's afraid that her delicate and sensitive cousin won't be able to bear it. I don't know what Pei Yuhan is thinking. Her father is from Zhangzhou. His who, her status is not low, but she has a petty temperament, her eyes will be red and tears will come out, and she looks aggrieved that someone bullied her. If she really has such a cowardly temper, she doesn't mean what she says. Pei Yuhan was a little complacent because no one refuted her words, but when Feng Ruolin questioned her with these few words, her face suddenly turned red, then white, and the colors were very colorful. Third cousin sister-in-law, I don't have one. Pei Yuhan waved her hand, with a lot of tears already accumulating in her eyes. Feng Ruolin couldn't stand Pei Yuhan's appearance. Compared to Su Wenyu, she had dealt with this cousin from her aunt's family many times. She was obviously doing well, but she kept looking sad all day long. Who could she show it to? He didn't treat her badly either. I just heard it clearly outside. Those who didn't know better thought that I, the sister-in-law, was bullying my sister-in-law. The sister-in-law couldn't even say anything when she returned to her parents' home, so Miss Pei had to be careful what she said. Feng Ruolin didn't want to look at her eldest aunt. Face, I just don't want to get used to Pei Yuhan's problem. I think everyone has to let her behave like this and let her talk nonsense. The lobby sister-in-law has to endure it, but she doesn't have to. She has protected her sister-in-law, and her mother-in-law is happy. Third cousin sister-in-law, I didn't mean that. It was for the sake of my cousin. Why do you all misunderstand me? What I said is correct. Don't you all look down on me. Pei Yuhan really cried when she said that. With a look of great grievance on his face, everyone present was speechless. Even Mrs. Pei felt distressed when she saw her niece like this, and felt that her niece's reaction was too much. Although her niece's words were indeed a bit harsh, she didn't know that she started crying like this in just a few words, and she felt a little helpless. But she was her biological niece, so she had to take care of her. Okay, Yuhan, please stop crying. Your third cousin is just discussing the matter. She doesn't mean to blame you. Wipe your tears quickly and stop crying. What does it look like for such a grown-up person to still cry? Pei, when she said the last sentence, his tone was a little harsh, and his niece was too ignorant. Yes, cousin Yuhan, please stop crying, otherwise uninformed people will think we are bullying you when they see it. Don't make your eldest sister feel bad. She loves you so much, even if she loves you for her own sake. Cousin Yuhan should also be happy, Su Wenyu said with a smile. After hearing Su Wenyu's words, Pei Yuhan couldn't continue to cry, otherwise she would be sorry for her aunt's love and care. This Su Wenyu was not a light-hearted person. He blocked her to death with just a few words. It was worse than her eldest cousin and sister-in-law. The third cousin's sister-in-law is even more powerful. Fenruolin felt that her sister-in-law was getting smarter and more powerful. Yes, Yu Eniang said it right, but that's not what she said. Cousin Yuhan can't just be sad for herself. She also has to think more about her eldest aunt. Don't let her auntie is worried. Mrs. Chu watched from the side as Su Wenyu and Aunt Fenruolin had one heart and one mind, and they were so aggrieved that Pei Yuhan couldn't express her words. She felt very happy in her heart. She had had enough of her cousin who always looked aggrieved and accused. For this she was often complained and scolded by her mother-in-law. Later, her mother-in-law seemed to know a little bit about her cousin's temperament and she got better. However, Mrs. Chu was completely disgusted with Pei Yuhan. After doing this, Pei Yuhan finally calmed down. Without her crying at the side, the atmosphere was quite harmonious, especially the three little ones. Everyone was very happy. Who doesn't like to be happy, especially Fenruolin and Fenruolin? The Chu family all wanted to have such a destiny. Even if they couldn't conceive three at once like Su Wenyu, it would still be good to have a boy. They all rushed to hold three little ones. Because the Su mansion was far away from the military camp, Han Yu could not come back every day. He could only come back every 1 or 2 days. When he came back, he saw his wife complaining. "What's wrong? Why are you pouting? But the children are not good." Han Yu walked over with a smile, looking at his beloved wife and son, and felt infinitely satisfied. Only when people have lost can they know how to cherish them. Without this experience, he wouldn't have known that his wife already had such a heavy weight in his heart. The children are very well behaved. They don't cry or fuss. They are very sensible. It feels like they can understand when talking to them, which is very painful. When Su Wenyu mentioned the children, a look of joy appeared on her face. Then you are not good. Why are you worse than a child even though you are such a big man? Han Yu teased after hearing this. He was obviously teasing Su Wenyu and pinched Su Wenyu's cheeks. These days, he has made people fat. Well, there was flesh on his face, which made him happy. After seeing Su Wenyu's weak and pale appearance, Han Yu was determined to raise his daughter-in-law to be fair and plump. Su Wenyu glared at Han Yu. "What are you talking about? She was just confinement at Su's house, everything was under her mother's nose, and her sister-in-law was here, her every move was strictly controlled, don't tell anyone." She even felt that her scalp was uncomfortable and her whole body was sticky and greasy, and she couldn't even wash it off. She felt that her body had a strange smell, and she felt uncomfortable no matter what she did. She was still at home, she said. In fact, women really don't have to do this during confinement. Concubine Li did not dress up and go to the garden for a few days after giving birth. She just didn't have to be too tired to catch a cold or blow in the wind. "Husband, can you ask the servants to bring in some hot water? I'm really uncomfortable. I haven't taken a bath for so long that I smell strange." Seeing Han Yu coming over to hug her, Su Wenyu dodged and said, she didn't want Han Yu to ask about the strange smell on her body. "Nonsense, How can you take a bath during confinement? Just bear with it. You can do whatever you want after the full month. If you don't do a good job of confinement, you will lose your health. Hanyu is particularly concerned about Su Wenayu's health now. He originally wanted Su Wenayu to stay in confinement for twice as long. After all, this birth really hurt her vitality. However, he knew that Su Wenayu would definitely not want to, so he added 10 more days. How could he let Su Wenayu do whatever she wanted at this time? Fortunately, his mother-in-law was watching him, so he didn't have to worry about it, so it was absolutely impossible for him to break through. In order to calm his wife down and stop making trouble, Hanyu grabbed her and sniffed her. It smells good, not strange at all, you are just overthinking. Su Wenayu saw Hanyu like this and grabbed Hanyu twice, but it was just a show. She knew that Hanyu would never help her, so she lost her temper and had to wait until the confinement period was over. Time passed so quickly. In 2 days, the 3 children would be full-month-old. The Su family prepared early in the morning, and the scene was particularly grand. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Rebirth of a Farming Wife. Author, TNNI. Chapter 229. Not to mention others, a lot of relatives from all walks of life of the Su family came here, and some of them were far away because bandits were rampant recently, and some just sent people to give gifts for safety reasons. As for the Han family, Su Wenayu sent someone to notify him within 2 days after she woke up. She remembered that Wang's child was about 1 month old, so she sent a gift as well. After all, children should not be involved in grudges between adults. Since Mrs. Wang gave birth to a daughter, she didn't hold a banquet. Even they just sent a message by the way. There's no need to wait for mom and dad. I've already sent a letter telling them not to come over, Hanyu said when he saw that Su Wenayu seemed to be waiting for someone. Su Wenayu looked at Hanyu with some surprise. Although bandits were rampant, they had not reached this level. The Han family was just an ordinary farmer with little money, so they should not attract the attention of the bandits. Moreover, she knew her father-in-law and mother-in-law, and knew that she was angry. After giving birth to 3 children, I am afraid that all I can think about is my grandson, especially when Wang gave birth to a daughter. Some guests from the Su family came in that direction today, and nothing happened. Hanyu seemed to be too cautious, otherwise he could have sent a few guards to pick them up. However, thinking about Su Henji's previous injury, Su Wenayu felt that it was better to be cautious. Okay. Seeing his wife's behavior, Hanyu explained, I was in the military camp 2 days ago, so I didn't have time to tell you in time. To be on the safe side, it's better not to let my parents come over. Those bandits are not ordinary bandits. Su Wenayu clearly heard the sarcasm in Hanyu's words, and there was clearly a different meaning. She seemed to have thought of something and wanted to ask, but it was not the right time. Don't think about it. It's not appropriate to be in such a crowded place right now. I'll tell you the whole story later. I kept it secret because I was afraid that you might have fetal force. Now I'll tell you everything you want to know. Okay. Hanyu also learned a lesson from this experience. Originally, he wanted to protect his wife under his wings, but now it seems that it is better to let her go through ups and downs with him and help each other. He believes that her daughter-in-law can do a good job in this regard. Just like those subordinates, who were completely won over by his wife. When Su Wenayu heard what Hanyu said, her eyes became bright and she nodded vigorously, Mr. Sir, you must keep your word. Of course, I keep my word, so you can take care of the child peacefully, and we'll talk about it tonight, Hanyu said and patted Su Wenayu's head lovingly, but Su Wenayu dodged it dissatisfied. I'm a child now, don't keep acting like this, acting like I'm still a child. Hanyu smiled and said nothing. She was just like a daughter-in-law, not just a child. An older child was taking a younger child. Thinking about that scene, Han Yu felt very happy. Fortunately, Grandma Li and Grandma Chen were relatively reliable. There is also a wet nurse, otherwise he would not be able to rest assured. Yu Niang, congratulations. You gave birth to 3 children at once. It saves trouble this time, Su Yun said with a smile. Looking at the 3 cute little guys, she couldn't take her eyes away and subconsciously touched herself. Belly. Today is the full moon banquet for the 3 children. Su Cai and Su Yun, as Su Wenayu's concubines, naturally have to come. I don't know if they have made an appointment, but they always come to Su Wenayu together. No, Yu Eniang has been blessed since she was a child, which makes everyone feel happy. Now that she is married, she is even more prosperous. She even gave birth to a child in the blink of an eye. Who wouldn't envy her? Su Cai said this with clear words. I had a sour feeling. I originally thought that Su Wenayu married a farmer and would never be as good as her in this life. Who knew that the farmer would enter the military camp in a blink of an eye and find a small official position from the 8th rank, and he could climb up so quickly. Within a few months, she had reached the 7th rank official position. Su Wenayu had also become an official's wife, and had 3 children. Her position in the Han family was secure. How could anyone not be envious and jealous of her? Su Wenayu has long been used to Su Cai's behavior. She has never been jealous of her since she was a child, but she doesn't care. Su Cai just talks about it, but doesn't do anything detrimental to her. She laughs at it. That's it. Su Cai felt more and more unhappy when she saw that Su Wenayu was becoming more and more calm now, not even bothering to ridicule her. At this time, Mrs. Pei also brought Pei Yuhan over, followed by 2 girls. One was only in her teens, and the other looked to be as old as Pei Yuhan. She seemed to be the concubine of the eldest family, because Mrs. Pei did not want to see 2 concubines. I haven't brought it out before, and this is the first time Su Wenayu has seen it. In the Su family, the line between legitimate daughters and concubine daughters was clear. Even if Su Wenayu's father separated from the Bayan Marquis mansion, the legitimate daughter was still the legitimate daughter. The 2 concubine daughters brought by the Pei family were presented to Su Wenayu. You 2 cousins don't need to be so polite. Since you live in the Su family, you don't need to be formal about everything. Just treat this place as your home. If you need something, or something is missing, just inform the housekeeper, or tell my mother and sister-in-law. Same thing. Su Wenayu pulled her 2 cousins and said kindly. Due to the rules of the Su family, the 2 cousins were raised a bit cowardly, but they were also very well behaved. The 2 fair and pure girls looked at Su Wenayu very much. It's joy, unlike Pei Yuhan, who doesn't feel comfortable when viewed horizontally or vertically. Su Wenayu said this with the intention of telling Pei Yuhan to listen. Thank you for your concern, cousin. Everything is fine for us 2 sisters living with my aunt. Mother has arranged everything and there is nothing missing. Su Langzhen, the older of the sisters, replied gracefully. That's good. You can come over to my place to play when you have nothing to do on weekdays. But I will go to Silla town the day after tomorrow. If you want, you can stay with me for a few days. Anyway, I won't be able to go back to Chang'an so soon. Su Wenayu said with a smile, also watching the 2 cousins fall in love. She has never had a sister. The 2 cousins are well behaved and clever. They don't want to have 2 concubines at home who like to flirt with her since they were young. No matter what, can't play. Is it really okay? The younger Su Lanfang finally couldn't hold back her anger. She heard that she could play with Su Wenayu, so she asked happily. After saying that, she felt that she was rude and looked at her aunt, a concubine like them. She never had the right to make decisions freely, and she had to ask her aunt to do anything she wanted to do. Seeing that Su Lanfang was looking forward to it, Su Wenyu helped plead with Pei, Auntie, the two cousins rarely go out on weekdays, so how about you let me take them back to stay for a few days? Don't worry, Auntie, I will definitely take care of you taking care of two cousins. Pei is indispensable, and she is a concubine anyway, so she doesn't need to worry about it. Will it cause trouble to you, Yu Eniang? No, no, the two cousins seem to be well behaved, so they won't cause any trouble. Pei Yuhan watched the three sisters being affectionate and felt very uncomfortable. Yu Niang, you are so partial. Why did you take your two cousins there and forget about me? I want to go too. Rebirth of a Farming Wife. Author, TNNI. Chapter 230. Pei Yuhan's words made Su Langzhen and Su Lanfang very unhappy. Her cousin clearly didn't invite her, so why should she join in the fun? However, Pei Yuhan was her mother's niece, and her position in her stepmother's heart was much more important than theirs. They only looked at Pei Yuhan's face and didn't dare to say much. They just hoped that their cousin wouldn't agree, otherwise what was the point of playing with Pei Yuhan? Su Wenyu looked at Pei Yuhan with a smile. This cousin was really unfeeling, otherwise how could she make such a request? Should she agree or not? Cousin, just agree to me. It's just right that I can be a companion to the two cousins. Let's make it this way. The day after tomorrow, you and I will go to Xinluo town together. Pei Yuhan was talking to herself. Perhaps she was afraid that Su Wenyu would not agree, so she made the decision directly. This is how Pei's two concubines were treated before. Pei Yuhan relied on Pei's family and expected that they would not refute. Although Su Wenyu was a legitimate daughter, the second house had been separated long ago. Now she was just the daughter of a wealthy businessman, so she naturally had to curry favor with Pei. Pei Yuhan expected that Su Wenyu would not be so ignorant. Su Langzhen and Su Lanfang both looked a little ugly. Pei Yuhan was really annoying. She liked to get involved in everything and always used them as a bully. She just bullied them because they were concubines and dared not make their mother unhappy. Su Wenyu could not do as Pei Yuhan wished. If she talked nicely, she might even consider her aunt's face when she was in a good mood. Want to use this trick to deal with her? No way. That won't work. My cousin can't go with me. Absolutely not, Su Wenyu said firmly. Not to mention Pei Yuhan, even Aunt Pei didn't expect Su Wenyu to refuse so bluntly. However, when Pei thought of Su Wenyu's previous personality, she understood a little. Although Yu Niang is now married and has a calm temperament, she is still a stubborn girl at heart. She is cheerful and generous. It is normal that she can't get along with Yuhan, a girl who drops gold beads at every turn. She doesn't mean to blame her. After all, she favors her nieces and nephews. Cousin Yu, do you dislike me? Pei Yuhan looked at Su Wenyu in astonishment, her face full of disbelief, as if Su Wenyu had done something unforgivable. Su Wenyu was not angry at Pei Yuhan's shamelessness, but instead said sincerely, Cousin, how could I dislike you? I just understand your filial piety. If you take your cousin and two cousins away, who will accompany your aunt? Your aunt often says that your cousin Yuhan is the most filial, and she will definitely not be willing to leave your aunt to play alone. Cousin, I really care about you, why do you misunderstand me? Do you think I am such a narrow-minded person? It really makes me sad that your cousin thinks so. Su Wenyu responded to Pei Yuhan with an even more surprised and aggrieved expression. When it comes to acting, everyone can't do it. Could it be that Pei Yuhan is better than her? You. Pei Yuhan pointed at Su Wenyu for a long time without making any sense, and wanted to cry again. Su Wenyu saw Pei Yuhan's face so stern. If cousin Yuhan doesn't want to attend the full moon banquet, that's fine. I won't force you. Don't cry on this happy day. It's so depressing. You'll cry away the joy. Su Wenayu's words were not too much. It was indeed too inappropriate to cry on a happy day. No wonder Su Wenayu spoke harshly. Pei sighed when she saw Pei Yuhan like this. How could such a good child be raised to be so petty and cry all the time? What can't be said in a nice way? Yuniang is more generous. As long as she is the mistress of the house, she will not like Pei Yuhan too much. Even if she is a little bit spoiled, it is better than crying like a concubine to get sympathy and use tricks. She is her niece. Otherwise, Pei would have been tired of her long ago. Pei attributed Pei Yuhan's behavior to Pei Yuhan's stepmother. Okay, Yuhan, your cousin is right. Today is a happy day, don't cry. You are the legitimate daughter of a fifth-rank governor. Don't learn those petty behaviors. Pei Yuhan held back the tears in her eyes after Pei said this. The two cousins saw Su Wenayu making Pei Yuhan lose face, and the legitimate mother who always loved Pei Yuhan did not stand on Pei Yuhan's side. She looked at Su Wenayu and slowly admired her. Su Wenayu felt a sense of accomplishment when she saw the two cousins like this, especially the young Su Lanfang, who was still a humble concubine in front of Pei. In the future, she would enter the palace and become a concubine of Emperor Wu, which would be more powerful than concubine Li. Why do I say this? It's not that Su Lanfang is more favored than concubine Li, it's just that with the queen and concubine being so powerful, she was able to give birth to the prince peacefully and live in the harem. Even the favored concubine Li was cannon fodder, but she was still fine until she raised the prince. It's not an ordinary person in the harem to have this ability, so she has to make good friends before she becomes successful. Su Wenayu admitted that she was a lazy person. Even if she really liked the two cousins, she might not spend so much effort. After all, it was the first time they met and they were not familiar with each other. Since she spent her effort, she must have something in return. She was said to be scheming, but she just wanted to make her life smoother in the future. Then will my aunt agree to let me take the two cousins back? This is my first time as a sister. Aunt, let me experience the fun of being a sister. Su Wenayu pulled Pei's hand and acted coquettishly, which was more intimate than Pei Yuhan and Pei. Pei was really pleased with Su Wenayu's words. Okay, since Yu Niang said so, how can I not agree to it? After saying this, Mrs. Pei looked at Su Langzhen and Su Lanfang. Since your cousin has pleaded for you, I will grant your wish and let you stay at your cousin's place for a few days. Just remember to be polite and follow the rules, don't embarrass our mansion, and don't cause trouble for Yu Niang. After getting Mrs. Pei's permission, Su Langzhen and Su Lanfang were all happy, and it was also because Su Wenayu treated them kindly that they could feel the kindness of this cousin. Yes, daughter remembers it. Pei Yuhan not only did not get any benefits from Su Wenayu, but was scolded by her aunt. Seeing that Su Wenayu and Su Langzhen got along well, she was annoyed and wanted to stomp her feet to vent her anger. Seeing that the two concubines of the second room looked at her as if they were laughing at her, she gave Su Cai and Su Yun a fierce look, but what was rare was that Su Cai and Su Yun knew Pei Yuhan's identity and did not try to curry favor with her. When Su Cai and Su Yun learned that Pei Yuhan was the prefect's legitimate daughter, they were actually somewhat tempted. However, they gave up the idea when they saw Pei Yuhan and Su Wenayu had a falling out. Although they and Su Wenayu were not on good terms and their sisterhood was very shallow, they would never side with outsiders. They knew in their hearts what they relied on to gain a foothold in their husband's family.